When someone tests you after a period of no contact, it often stems from a psychological response to uncertainty. People by nature are curious about what they can no longer see or control. When you go silent and remove yourself from their immediate reach, it disrupts the narrative they've built about you in their mind. Suddenly, you're no longer predictable, and that unpredictability is unsettling. This is why they feel compelled to test you. It's their way of trying to regain clarity in a situation they no longer fully understand. In relationships, especially those that end with unresolved feelings, silence can be more powerful than any confrontation. When you choose no contact, you're not just creating distance, you're sending a message. That message says, I value myself enough to step away and prioritize my peace. This decision can stir many emotions in the other person: curiosity, confusion, and even fear. They begin to wonder why you're not reaching out, what's changed about you, and whether they've lost their hold on your attention. That's when the tests begin. Their tests might seem subtle at first. Maybe it's a casual text, a random like on your social media, or even bumping into you accidentally. These actions aren't coincidental, they're calculated. They want to see if you'll react, if you'll break your silence, or if they still hold space in your heart. It's a way to gauge where they stand without putting their ego fully on the line. But why does this happen? It's because people don't like to feel powerless. And your decision to go no contact has shifted the dynamic. Before, they might have felt like they had control, whether it was over the relationship, the communication, or even your emotions. But now they're left guessing. That guessing creates an itch they need to scratch. And so they test you, not because they necessarily want to reconnect, but because they want to restore a sense of control. What's important here is your response or lack thereof. Their testing is not about you, it's about them. It's about their insecurities, their fears, and their need for validation. Your silence holds the power to remind them that your worth doesn't depend on their attention. It shows them that you're not waiting on the sidelines, hoping for their return. Instead, you've chosen to focus on yourself, on your growth, and on what truly matters to you. That's where your strength lies. By understanding the psychology behind no contact, you gain clarity. You see that their tests are not a reflection of your value, but of their need to feel secure. And when you recognize this, you can approach the situation with grace, confidence, and composure. Remember, the power of silence is unmatched, and the way you carry yourself in these moments speaks volumes about your self-respect. And when someone tests you after no contact, it often ties back to their ego. Relationships, especially those that end abruptly or leave unresolved emotions, can bruise a person's sense of self-worth. For someone to test you, it means they're grappling with their own insecurities about what the silence means. They might not admit it outright, but deep down, there's a desire to reaffirm their importance in your life. Testing you is their way of trying to reclaim a sense of control over the situation, and more importantly, over their feelings about it. Think about how ego operates in relationships. It thrives on validation, on the reassurance that one holds value and significance in another person's life. When you go no contact, that validation is suddenly taken away. You're no longer reaching out, responding, or engaging in the patterns that once fed their ego. This absence can feel like a void, one they're desperate to fill. They begin to wonder, do they still think about me? Do I still matter to them? And rather than confront these questions within themselves, they reach out to you, not for reconciliation, but for confirmation that they're still relevant, The ways they test you might vary. It could be a seemingly innocent message like just checking in, or a bolder attempt to provoke a reaction, such as bringing up something personal to you or hinting at moving on. These actions are not about genuine connection. They're about gauging your response. If you react emotionally, whether with anger, sadness, or excitement, they feel validated. They believe they still hold power over your emotions, and that feeds their ego. But if you remain composed and unbothered, it unsettles them. It forces them to question their assumptions and their hold over you. Here's the thing, your silence during no contact isn't just about creating space. It's about reclaiming your own power. You're no longer participating in a dynamic that prioritizes their needs over yours. And when they test you, it's crucial to recognize what's really happening. They're not reaching out because they've changed or because they're ready to give you what you deserve. They're reaching out because their ego is struggling with the idea that they no longer have the influence they once did. What makes this dynamic even more interesting is how your response, or lack thereof, reshapes the situation. When you don't fall into the trap of their testing, you're sending a clear message. You're no longer operating from a place of need or emotional dependency. You're showing them through your actions that you've shifted your focus inward, prioritizing your growth, peace, and happiness. And that's a powerful place to be. By understanding that their tests are rooted in ego, you can approach these situations with clarity and strength. You're not here to feed someone's insecurities or validate their self-worth at the expense of your own. Instead, you're standing firm in the knowledge that your value doesn't depend on their attention or approval. You're in control now, and that's a position they won't easily forget. When someone tests you after no contact, it often stems from their inability to cope with losing control. People who feel the need to test you are often grappling with the discomfort of no longer having influence over your actions, emotions, or decisions. In the past, they might have been accustomed to knowing how you'd respond, what you'd say, or even how much of your time and energy they could command. But when you step away and go silent, that control vanishes and it leaves them unsettled. Control is a powerful motivator for many, especially in relationships, where one person might have held more emotional leverage. When you break free from those dynamics by choosing silence, it disrupts their sense of stability. They may start to feel uneasy, questioning what changed and why they no longer hold the sway they once did. It's this discomfort, this loss of control, that compels them to test you. They're searching for answers, trying to see if they can still pull the strings and elicit the reactions they expect. This loss of control can show up in various ways. Maybe they suddenly reach out under the guise of concern, sending you messages that seem casual but are loaded with hidden intent. They might try to provoke an emotional response by bringing up shared memories or even trying to make you jealous with mentions of someone new in their life. All of these attempts have one purpose: to see if they still have the ability to influence you, because if they can control your emotions even slightly, they feel they've regained a sense of power. But here's the truth they don't want to acknowledge. Your decision to go no contact is a declaration of independence. It says, I am no longer tied to your validation, approval, or influence. And that independence can be incredibly intimidating to someone who's used to being in control. It forces them to confront a version of you that is no longer tethered to their actions or opinions. This version of you prioritizes self-respect, self-worth, and self-growth, things they cannot manipulate. When they test you, it's important to stay grounded. Their attempts to regain control are not about reconciliation or genuine connection. They are about their need to feel significant in your life again. And the way you respond or choose not to respond determines whether they succeed. By maintaining your composure and refusing to engage in their games, you're asserting that you are the one in control now. You're showing them, without words, that their influence over you has diminished. This realization can be unsettling for them, but it's not your responsibility to manage their discomfort. Your focus should remain on your growth, your peace, and your journey forward. When you hold firm, you not only protect your progress, but also reinforce the boundaries that safeguard your emotional well-being. Let them test you all they want. The power lies in how you choose to rise above it. When someone tests you after no contact, it often comes from their deep curiosity about your transformation. Silence has a way of creating mystery, and mystery breeds questions. By stepping back and choosing not to engage, you've done something many people find difficult. You've created space. And in that space, you've given yourself the opportunity to grow, to heal, and to rediscover your own power. But to the person testing you, that same space feels like a gap they can't fill, a puzzle they can't solve. This curiosity about your transformation can be unsettling for them. They may wonder why you're no longer accessible, why the patterns they once relied on have shifted. They might notice the absence of your texts, your calls, or your willingness to engage in old dynamics. And the more they think about it, the more their curiosity grows. They're left asking themselves, what testing you is their way of trying to peek behind the curtain to see if they can uncover the answers that your silence has concealed. The beauty of transformation is that it doesn't require announcements or explanations. True change is visible in your actions, in the energy you carry, and in the boundaries you uphold. And when you've genuinely focused on your growth during no contact, it shows. You're no longer the same person who tolerated disrespect, ignored red flags, or sought validation from someone who couldn't give it. You've shifted, and that shift is impossible to ignore. The person testing you can feel it, even if they can't fully articulate it. Their curiosity often drives them to probe in subtle ways. They might send casual messages like, how have you been? Or just checking in, hoping to gauge where you stand. Or they might push a little further, asking direct questions about your life, your relationships, or your plans. These tests are not about genuine concern. They're about satisfying their curiosity. They want to know if your transformation is real, if it's lasting, and more importantly, if it includes a life without them. But here's the most powerful part. You don't owe them answers. Your growth, your peace, and your transformation are for you. You're not obligated to explain how you've changed, why you've changed, or what you're working towards. The person testing you is seeking validation for their curiosity, but that's not your burden to carry. By maintaining your boundaries and staying true to your path, transformation often creates discomfort for others because it challenges their perception of you. It forces them to reconcile the version of you they once knew with the version of you that now exists. And while that discomfort may drive them to test you, it's a sign that you're doing something right. You're evolving, and in that evolution, you're showing them and yourself that you are no longer bound by the expectations or limitations of the past. And so when they test you, let them wonder, let their curiosity fuel their questions, but don't let it pull you back into old patterns. Your transformation speaks louder than any response ever could. When someone tests you after no contact, their actions often come from a need to gauge their emotional impact on you. In relationships, especially those with imbalanced dynamics, one person can become dependent on knowing they still hold a place in the other's mind or heart. They want to feel significant, to know that their words, actions, or even their absence can evoke a reaction. And that uncertainty is what drives them to test you. Think about it. Every text, call, or gesture they make is less about you and more about confirming something for themselves. They might reach out with a casual, "Hey, just thinking about you," or suddenly pop up on your social media liking old photos or leaving cryptic comments. These are not random acts, they are deliberate moves to see if they can still stir something within you. They're fishing for signs that you're still emotionally invested, that your silence hasn't completely severed their hold on you. But here's the thing. Their need to test your emotional response speaks volumes about the power you hold. When someone seeks validation through your reactions, it's a clear indicator that they're struggling with the loss of control. Your choice to step away, to no longer engage in their emotional games, has shifted the dynamic. You've reclaimed the energy they once took for granted, and that shift creates a void they don't know how to fill. What they don't realize is that your lack of response is not indifference, it's strength. It's a declaration that your peace matters more than their need for reassurance. And that strength can be unsettling for them. They may push harder, trying different tactics to provoke a response, but each attempt only reinforces the fact that you've outgrown the need to play by their rules. This is where emotional resilience becomes crucial. Staying grounded, refusing to engage, and maintaining your boundaries sends a powerful message. You're no longer accessible for manipulation or control. You're not ignoring them out of spite. You're choosing yourself, your growth, and your well-being over the chaos of their emotional tests. That choice not only protects your progress, but also weakens their ability to draw you back into old patterns. When they test you, remember that their actions are not about connection or reconciliation. They're about their own insecurities. And while it may be tempting to respond, to prove a point, or defend your silence, the most powerful response is no response at all. Let them wonder, let them question, and let your peace, your strength, and your unwavering commitment to yourself be the answer they'll never fully understand. When someone tests you after no contact, it's often an attempt to regain control. Control is a powerful motivator, especially for someone who once relied on your reactions, attention, or energy to feel validated. By choosing no contact, you've effectively disrupted the dynamic where they held sway over your emotions. That loss of control is unsettling for them, and their tests are an effort to reestablish it. Control, for many, isn't just about power, it's about security. They might have felt secure in the predictability of your responses, in knowing that if they reached out, you'd be there. But no contact introduces unpredictability. They don't know where you stand, what you're thinking, or how you've grown. That lack of insight creates discomfort for them, and their instinct is to regain the upper hand by testing your boundaries. Their methods can vary, from subtle gestures to outright provocations. They might send vague messages, hoping to stir curiosity or nostalgia. They might try to provoke a reaction through social media, sharing posts that seem aimed at you, or appearing suddenly in places where they know you'll notice. All these actions are calculated attempts to pull you back into their sphere of influence, to see if they can still control the narrative. But here's the truth. Control only exists where you allow it. By maintaining your boundaries, by refusing to engage, you demonstrate that their hold over you is broken. It's not about playing games or ignoring them out of spite. It's about protecting your peace and prioritizing your growth. Your silence speaks volumes. It tells them that you've outgrown the patterns that once defined your interactions, that you're no longer willing to compromise your well-being to accommodate their need for control. And this shift doesn't just affect them, it empowers you. Each time you choose not to react, you strengthen your sense of autonomy. You remind yourself that your happiness, your emotional stability, and your path forward are not dependent on their actions. That realization is liberating. It allows you to focus on your journey without being pulled back into the drama of the past. When they test you, it's not a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of their discomfort with your growth. They're grasping at straws, trying to reclaim what they've lost. But you've already made the most powerful decision by choosing to step away, by choosing yourself. And in doing so, you've taken back the control they once had over your emotions, proving that your strength is far greater than their attempts to test it. When someone tests you after no contact, their actions often stem from a deep-seated fear of irrelevance. Think about it. People who thrive on validation, control, or even just knowing they're in your thoughts struggle with the idea of being forgotten. No contact is a bold statement. It says, I'm moving forward, and that reality can be unsettling for someone who once relied on your presence to feel significant. Their tests, whether it's a message out of the blue, an indirect social media post, or even running into you unexpectedly, are all aimed at one thing: confirming they still matter. They want to know that despite the silence, they've left an impression on you. It's not about genuine connection or reconciliation. It's about them needing to feel relevant in your life. But here's what they don't realize. Your decision to go no contact is not about erasing them. It's about reclaiming yourself. It's about breaking free from the patterns that held you back, from the emotional cycles that drained your energy. When they test you, it's a clear sign that they sense your detachment, your growth. And that growth threatens the relevance they once believed they had in your life. Responding to their test, even in the smallest ways, can feel tempting. A simple reply, a like on a post, it might seem harmless. But each response reopens a door you've worked hard to close. It gives them the validation they're seeking and reinforces the idea that they still have a foothold in your journey. Instead, the most powerful thing you can do is hold your ground. Maintain your silence, not as an act of defiance, but as an affirmation of your progress. This isn't easy, especially if their tests are designed to provoke strong emotions, nostalgia, anger, guilt. But every time you choose not to engage, you're sending a clear message. Your growth, your peace, your path forward is more important than their need for relevance. You're showing them and yourself that your life is no longer shaped by their presence or absence. By staying the course, by keeping your focus on your healing and your goals, you make it clear that their relevance in your life is a chapter that's closed. And that's not just a message for them, it's a reminder for you. A reminder that your worth isn't tied to anyone's validation, and that the life you're building is too important to be disrupted by the past. When someone tests you after no contact, it's often because they can sense your strength and independence shining through. Silence is powerful. It sends a clear message without uttering a single word. It shows that you are no longer operating from a place of dependence or emotional vulnerability. And for someone used to controlling the narrative, that is deeply unsettling. So it disrupts the dynamic. When they reach out, they're looking for the old version of you, the one who might have been quick to reply, to explain, to validate their feelings at the cost of your own. But your silence tells them that version of you no longer exists. It says, I'm not seeking your approval, your attention, or your validation. They might test your independence by baiting you with provocations or even with kindness. Maybe they send a casual, "How have you been?" or share a memory you both once cherished. These aren't random, they're calculated. They want to see if they can pull you back into the dynamic where they had influence, where your reactions were predictable. They want to see if their words can still stir something in you. But independence isn't just about refusing to respond. It's about redefining who you are and what you stand for. It's about living a life so full and meaningful that their attempts to disrupt it barely register. It's about showing them and yourself that your happiness is no longer contingent on their presence or approval. You're building something bigger than the relationship you had with them. And that's a reality they have to come to terms with. Your independence also forces them to face themselves. When you step back and stand tall, they're left alone with their actions, their choices, and the consequences of how they treated you. That mirror is uncomfortable, and their tests are often a way to avoid looking too closely at their own reflection. By trying to pull you back, they're really trying to avoid dealing with the void your absence has created. And every time you choose not to engage, you're reinforcing your growth. You're proving to yourself that you're capable of standing on your own, that you're not defined by their opinion or their attention. It's not about winning or losing, it's about reclaiming your power, your voice, and your peace. And when you focus on that, their tests lose their meaning. They become just noise in the background of a life that is moving forward, stronger and freer than ever. When someone tests you after no contact, it often stems from their discomfort with the boundaries you've set. Boundaries are powerful. They are not walls that shut people out, but lines that define how you expect to be treated. For someone who once thrived on crossing those lines, your newfound strength, setting boundaries after no contact is more than just silence. It's a declaration of self-worth. It says, "This is how I deserve to be treated, and I will accept nothing less." But for someone used to taking advantage of your leniency, those boundaries challenge their sense of control. Their tests, whether it's trying to provoke a reaction, guilt you into responding, or appearing overly apologetic, are often attempts to break down those boundaries, making it your job. What they fail to understand is that boundaries aren't negotiable. They are non-negotiable acts of self-care. And the beautiful thing about setting boundaries is that they don't just protect you from others, they teach you how to honor yourself. When you draw that line, you're not just saying, "This is what I won't tolerate." You're also saying, "This is what I deserve." They might try to push against these boundaries, not because they genuinely want to connect, but because they want to test whether you'll stand firm. Maybe they'll bring up old memories or appeal to your empathy. They might say things like, "I just need closure," or "I thought you cared about me." These are tactics designed to make you question yourself and your resolve. But remember, boundaries are not about them. They're about you. They're about creating a space where your peace, your growth, and your happiness come first. Every time you hold firm, you're reinforcing the message that your well-being is your priority. You're teaching them and yourself that you are no longer willing to compromise your values, your time, or your energy. And while they might find this frustrating, you'll find it liberating. Because boundaries don't just protect you from harm, they pave the way for healthier, more fulfilling connections, whether with others or with yourself. It takes courage to stand by your boundaries, especially when they're tested, but every moment of resistance strengthens your sense of self. It reminds you of how far you've come and how much further you're going. And in time, Those who can't respect your boundaries will fade into the background, leaving space for the people and experiences that truly honor the person you've become. When someone tests you after no contact, it can often feel like they are trying to reassert their power over you, attempting to regain a sense of control over the relationship. What they fail to recognize is that your silence and your decision to go no contact isn't about weakness or fear. It's about reclaiming your autonomy. It's about taking back control of your own life. You see, for a person who thrives on drama, chaos, or emotional manipulation, they expect that to provoke a response. They expect that silence means you're struggling or that you're still emotionally invested. When you refuse to give them that reaction, when you don't fall into their game, it leaves them in an uncomfortable place. They are confronted with the fact that you are no longer available for the emotional roller coaster they once controlled. This test they offer is not about closure, healing, or even rekindling the relationship. It's a self-serving move, a way for them to remind themselves that they still have some power over you, that you're still an option, that they can still have a hold on your emotional state. But silence is the loudest answer you can give. It's the most powerful message you can send. You're saying, I've moved forward and I no longer need to engage in these cycles. For them, silence might be confusing at first. They may question why you're not responding, why you're not giving in, why you're not showing any signs of desperation or longing. And it's this very confusion that begins to chip away at their ego. Because when you're no longer playing by their rules, it forces them to reflect on their own behaviors. This process of them testing you, whether it's a random message, an apology they don't mean, or a passive-aggressive comment, is not really about you at all. It's about them. It's about their fear of losing control, their fear of being irrelevant. But you can't let their insecurities pull you back into the past. Their test is a reflection of their own instability and desire to regain influence over you. You must stay grounded in the fact that your life, your peace, and your journey are no longer up for negotiation. By continuing to stay silent, by continuing to show no emotional reaction, you are reinforcing the strength you've gained. Every moment you resist responding, every day you choose not to engage with their games, you're telling yourself that you are worthy of more than the emotional roller coaster they've tried to drag you back into. You're choosing peace over conflict, growth over stagnation, and freedom over manipulation. And that, my friend, is a choice you'll never regret. So when the tests come, when the manipulations start, and when the attempts to draw you back into their world begin, stand firm. Understand that you've already passed the test. By simply holding your ground and not reacting, you've already demonstrated the most powerful thing you could, your strength, your self-respect, and your commitment to your own happiness. And in that silence, in that powerful decision to move on, you will find the peace and the freedom that you've been searching for all along.